Okay. Oh wow, Jenny gave me was following me. Okay. All right. So, how many reading Money in Society from I'll be reading Money in Society from chapter 3 of Money in Society. And I'm gonna see which save. Nope, not this save. It's not that save. I gotta figure out which is the save, which is like I'm the closest to freaking Bay. Which is the save I'm closest to like Balaam. Alright, so not that one. That's for the Waltz of the Moon. Not that one. It's not that one. So I think it's this one. Nope, not this one. Alright, so it's which is this one? Nope. Okay, so let's conclude the pre-exam. So we'll skip through here and then we'll get to let's skip this bitch, okay? And then we're gonna head Now we're gonna head to Balaam. And we'll go to the Balaam Hotel and we'll wait and see who else is in the stream before I start reading this chapter 3 of Money Society. Pro tip: if you stay on the road in this game, you won't encounter monsters. Like, this is the remastered version of 8, but they didn't fucking bother to remaster like all the pixels and shit, so alright. Okay, so check 1 2 check. Let's see if it I'll give everyone like another 3 minutes, see what goes on. See if they anyone else gonna come in here so I can start doing this this chapter. We start reading chapter 3. You know, move money in society. It looks like I lost a follower. Whatever. You know, you gain some, you lose some. Let me. Alright, let me see if that helps a bit. If that doesn't help, then I don't know what will. I lowered down the game volume. I'm gonna see if test it out on my headphones on my phone. So I don't know which one to do. Like, you can faintly hear it if I do that, but if not, now if I switch it to this to 10% volume through the Xbox app, you can definitely hear it that way. Hey Rain, I'm actually gonna read a chapter from Money Society, so I'm gonna put you to sleep. For tomorrow's book club, M's book club. So bear with me. I will be reading this off my phone. I don't have my phone's the way how I pay attention to the Twitch chat. So occasionally I'm gonna pause reading. I'm gonna see if I can do it. Hey, what's up, Spartan? Not much. I'm about to start reading chapter 3 from Money Society. Rain's here, perfect timing, so I could put her to sleep. Wait, fuck. Do we even have... Did I delete it? Let me look for the goddamn book now. Do I even have it still? That is the major question. Oh, okay, there's digital editions. Alright, so... Money and Society by Paul something. I got 5 viewers. To you 5 viewers, welcome. I won't... Oh. What the fuck? Hold on, before I start reading. Hold on, there's a bunch of sirens outside. I gotta go watch this. Oh. The police is like, we are here to read as well. Yeah. It was actually the fire department and the ambulance. Anyway, I wasn't available for chapter 2 last week. I know Icky read it, and I was working during that book club. So I'll be able to attend chapter 3 this week. I won't be able to attend chapter 4 next week because I'm working a 6-day next week. So I'll be reading this off my phone. I do have Twitch open, so I'm able to minimize the window, but occasionally I will pause reading just to go back. Chapter 3 is about money and finance. So anyone that's here, the neighbors aren't Oh, how are your nosy neighbors? The Hispanic neighbors, are wondering how they're getting a bunch of fruit flies now. And the white neighbors, they're trying to figure out why there's a stink bomb in their backyard. Alright, so I'm gonna start reading Money and Society, chapter 3. The ones who got broken into all the time. Oh, those guys? Oh, they're kind of pissed that they had to replace the windows and shit, but you know, it's all good now. Alright, so chapter 3 is might be a little long one, so, and the phone time multiplies the pages by 2, so, bear with me. And anyone that's here for Final Fantasy VIII gameplay, I'm sorry, but I'll be reading this chapter from this adult book from, the Bela Motel, with this awesome background music to kind of give like a zen vibe. So just picture me as Squall here that's talking to you as I'm reading this book. I do actually wear black all the time. I like to wear harness boots, so these awesome shoes he's wearing. I do own like a pair of Doc Martens that have that. I do own leather jackets, and I do like to wear Anyway, so Rain, I want to read you to sleep. So this is Chapter 3, titled Money and Finance. Time and Money 3.1. Having dealt with where money comes from in Chapter 2, how money as we know it came to be, this chapter will look into the purpose it serves. Clearly, this cannot mean listings all of the things that money does and can do, which would be an endless and futile endeavor. Rather, we will show what exactly makes its existence and usage so significant. It is not social-structural, or psychosocial encounters of people with money, which will be dealt with in Chapter 5, but rather a more or less teleological decadence of modern financial markets from money that is the core issue. Financial markets by no means immediately or automatically follow from the mere existence of money, as we will see, yet money already carries within itself an economic logic that will ultimately push it above and beyond itself to become something higher, namely finance. Beyond studying the logic underlying the evolution of financial markets, the idea is to show with any theory of money, particularly in sociology, which has often bracketed out economic and political economic questions to its own disadvantage, should pay greater attention to finance, that is, to the principles and practices of how money works as a finance. Oh god, that's the first paragraph. Our theoretical as well as historical starting point is the already thoroughly monetized society found from the early modern period on perhaps the 17th century in Europe. During that period, it was not yet the case that all members of society, especially not the subjects of the sundry lords and princelings who governed Europe, were completely, that is, existentially dependent on super-regional and therefore anonymous markets. On the level of society as a whole, even with respect to Western Central Europe and the US, it was only in the 20th century that total dependence on markets emerged. Nevertheless, reliance on markets began to extend beyond the cities and into the rural areas. Although they were still autarkic in terms of food, rural populations already found themselves reliant for everyday objects not just on local craftspeople but also on traveling tradespeople who had the know-how to source commodities from distant suppliers. An increasing share of goods were only available via the market in exchange for money, and hence a growing share of people's labor products, perhaps even all of them, had to be traded for money. An immediate additional consequence of this was that labor became an increasingly dominant form of economic relationship, although it would only become the fate of the majority with the arrival of the Industrial Revolution. Equally widespread, quite inescapable in situations of need, and therefore largely unquestioned, was the practice of taking out loans and consequently the need to earn money with which to pay off the interest. To be dependent on the market meant and still means to be dependent on money. The practical compulsion had cognitive consequences. People learned to regard the things they owned and produced in the same way as the things they needed or desired, namely as embodiments of a nominally fluctuating but nonetheless substantively equivalent monetary exchange value. The same principle came to apply to the skills they possessed and the work they did. Anyone who wanted to purchase a new pair of boots, who had to work, for instance, for 1 year as a laborer on a manor estate to achieve this goal, will learn to see his skills and labor power in relation to the price of these boots and on top of his other necessary expenses. A growing dependency on faceless markets, the fact that anonymous others produced and sold the things that one needed or at least wanted to have, and the fact that these others would, as a matter of the course, accept money as payment, all led inexorably to a reorientation of one's own production towards meeting the needs of the market, or rather the prices found on the market, and no longer towards what one's social environment expected. Nowadays, it is common to test our market value, a shorthand and legitimate excuse for a range of behaviors, including but not limited to renegotiating one's salary. Yet each and every person initially had to learn such an orientation towards the marketplace and the pricing of the world that it entails. Usually in childhood, we are not born like this, but neither can we avoid becoming like this. The sheer fact that so many others around us assign monetary value to nearly all material goods, as well as to different behaviors, prompts us to emulate them. Through this behavior, in turn, we confirm to others the inevitable correctness of this monetary ordering of the world. Oh shit, it's a fucking mouthful. I'm gonna take a quick hydrate break. I'm learning while playing at the same time the perfect formula. Yeah, you better be learning. Oh. Hey Raid, I don't know if you saw the message on Discord, but I did download that game Golf with Friends. It's free on Game Pass. And it's only $15.99, so I might purchase it for Spartan. So maybe we could all do a collab stream later. Emma's supposed to come in here and listen, so I doubt she'll show up because she's probably gonna fall asleep. All right, back to the book. Of course, in reality, the world is not made up of exchange values, making this an objective falsehood. But the same goes for any non-made institutions such as gender roles and the law, which also draw their stability from the fact that we treat them as natural or self-evident. Social institutions inescapably overlay and supersede nature, thereby reshaping human beings themselves. Their practical existence, if not the concrete forms they take, is indispensable for the world we live in. They individually disempower, restrict us, yet at the same time create new possibilities by giving us more in it, especially those with whom we regularly interact, whose cooperation we rely on by making them how we expect them to be. By generating certainty and security, institutions enable action and, more specifically, greater levels of specialization, that is, the development of differentiated abilities and action orientations that would otherwise be unattainable. Money and markets are just examples or special cases of this fundamental institutional, historical, anthropological dialectic of disempowerment and the potential for new powers of closing down some avenues to open up others. On the hand, the dependency of human beings on markets and money curtails their independence. Nobody can live anything resembling a normal life without acquiring the necessities of life, as well as most comforts beyond the bare essential by paying for them. This applies not just to purchase of food, but also to visiting the doctor or joining a sports club, even if the doctor is employed by the National Health Service or paid by an insurance company, and therefore there is no immediate obligation to pay oneself. The insurance company needs substantial funds, while membership dues are only the first of many expenses required for practicing sports. We live in a society of money because participation and sometimes even success in the non-monetary spheres of life depend on having access to money. To win a case in a court of law, or even just to be able to pursue, and depends upon being able to afford a good solicitor. Success in education is rarely a function of pure talent and hard work, but also depends on the monetary conditions under which the learning took place. If not, in some cases of people's ability to outright pay for the access of the right of educational institutions, we are all inexorably dependent on the acquisition of money, for the most part through wage work, but in some cases also by qualifying for transfer payments or being independently wealthy. Of course, social participation, professional success, and even just the ability to live a satisfactory, if not fulfilled, life depends on much more than just having economic capital. But to deny that, at least up to a point, the chance of having meaningful friendships, a career, and life satisfaction correlate with and depend on one's financial security would be to deny the blindingly obvious. Leaving aside the ethically and politically unavoidable questions of what levels of social and therefore monetary inequality can or indeed ought to be tolerated, the dependency of modern humanity on money mirrors the promise of freedom that money brings. Of course, in practice, no poor person feels this way about their dependency on money, experiencing it not so much as curtailment of their chances to live an alternative, autarkic life than as a lack of those freedoms others have. But what exactly is this promise of freedom, which explains the generalized craving for money in the modern society? What makes us see money not primarily as a source of alienation, but rather as the opposite, the perfect tool for actualizing our true selves? It is money's extreme fungibility, its usefulness for nearly everything. This capacity to not just to be the universal equivalent and mirror of all other goods, but to act as kind of joker card that can be played at any time, irrespective of what is on the table, and even to determine for others how they should play, is what lies behind the universal pursuit of money. I have no idea what the fuck I just read right now. Alright, next page. Money's superiority over all other goods expresses itself in the different dimensions. First, those who have it are free to choose from whom to purchase goods. This is the social dimension, although habit might lead us always to buy our coffee from the same shop and perhaps even from the same barista. If our expectations of friendly and respectful service should ever be disappointed, we would have the option to buy it elsewhere. And we are aware of this fact, as is the vendor, who therefore has an incentive to be quite accommodating and serve us with a smile every day, particularly if he owns a shop. Furthermore, we are free to choose what we spend our money on. This is the objective dimension. Even if we need to do our weekly shopping on a fixed budget, we can still choose between different products. Moreover, the more money we have, the freer we are to choose. Trips to town or the shopping center can be undertaken without any clear plan regarding what to come back with. And who could claim to have never entered a department store intending to buy a swimsuit but leaving instead with a t-shirt? The world of consumer products is cleverly designed to tempt us into buying one product rather than another, although in principle, the one might be just as useful or useless as the other, because in most cases, one product is intrinsically as good as any other, especially with the higher-end goods. Advertising seeks to convince us that we are buying a special experience, an attitude, a personal statement, or even a way of life. Notwithstanding how changed fashions and styles may restrict some of our choices, however, we still retain the freedom to choose. Finally, as people with money, we are also free to decide when to spend it, which not only constitutes money's special charm, but is also a source of one of its very distinctive problems. This is the temporal dimension aside from our basic material needs for regular nourishment, clothing, and shelter, each of which, of course, could be satisfied in many different ways. The fulfillment of most desires can be postponed. Because there is rarely a need to buy anything right at this moment, friendly salespeople and alluring advertising are always trying to get us to make an immediate purchase. The advantage of being able to spend my money today, tomorrow, next week, next month, or even next year is not just that I do not have to make a decision now. In deferring my purchase, I postpone having to make a decision at all, while giving up nothing. Under stable economic and monetary conditions, particularly in a society of surplus and plenty, in which buyers are in shorter supply than goods, I can safely assume that whatever I can buy today, I can also buy tomorrow, when I can also decide what exactly to buy and from whom. Money is a means of delaying a decision until the time is right. It helps me to keep my options open and never forces me to commit as someone with money. I am assured of being able to decide later without even knowing or needing to know what choices I might face then. Money, put differently, helps to manage uncertainty and to look confidently towards the future despite the future being unknown. Money is a tool for managing time, a tool for making the future your oyster. Damn. Through this act, the future itself gains depth and plasticity. If, as Reinhard Kochler has argued, a defining feature of the modern age is the decoupling of people's expectations of what will come from their own experience of what presently is, if in other words, the future can be expected or at least imagined. To be different from the present, this expectation stems as much from our collective experience of technological and political change as from the continuing monetization of our economic and social relations. At least true as Benjamin Franklin's credo that time is money, that time ought therefore to be used to make money, is that money is time. Hold on, there's static from my mic. Let me fix it real quick. Okay. Yet crucially, this great advantage for one person brings disadvantages of others. If I, as someone with money, can decide freely what to buy and from whom and when, I amplify the uncertainty that others face about their ability to sell their wares, and thereby get ahead economically or even just to survive. Even though the key advantage of money, or at least one of its great advantages, is that it resolves the problem of the double coincidence of wants. Money's existence, or rather the prevalence of money-mediated market exchange, by no means guarantees that all goods will find willing buyers. Money might alleviate my uncertainty, but only by worsening uncertainty for others. Economic crises have many causes, but the sheer ability to hold on to money for an indefinite amount of time can, in itself, result in slumping demand, or if the necessary capital is lacking, slumping goods production as well. Most economic actors cannot simply create money. The present stock of money is what counts, and if whatever money exists, present stock of money is what counts, and if whatever money exists is not actually spent, it turns from the viciousness. And if whatever money exists is not actually spent, it turns from the viscous lubricant of the gears of the economy into the grit that jams them up. Alright, so far what I read is that money has a big hold on us in general. Like the history of money, that traders have a good access to money, have a good understanding of money, and keep track of inventory. It's like, say, you want a nice pair of boots, but you can't afford it. Say, if we're back in the medieval times, you'd have to work to afford to be able to pay for the boots, and you understand like the process that laborers make to create those boots that you want. Which is why, like, most people today, like, to live comfortably, they need to have some form of access to money. Like, money has a certain way of controlling how comfortable our lives can be. Like, money has a way of, like, we need money to satisfy our food, our freaking basic tools of survival, which in our society today, we do need money for that. Now, if we're living off the grid, you don't need money for any of that crap. You can just go out, make your own tools with the not very primitive knowledge, and you can build your home and stuff. Basically, so far what I read is that money, like, in a way, money kind of controls our decisions, like our decisions to be impulse buy and other bullshit, but that's not true. And basically, money, like, if you hold on to money, it's like you're basically stalling the gears in the economy that's constantly moving forward with the purchases of goods and stuff. So far, that's what I read. I don't know if you guys got that. Hey, Rain, are you still awake? I think it's something with money. All right, back to chapter 3. Took a little bit of a break to catch up with chat. Okay, so for John Maynard Keynes, this lack of effective demand was a real reason behind the Great Depression that began in 1929, which had to be redressed by state-led economic stimulus finance, if necessary by credit. If private owners of wealth and capital preferred to hoard their money rather than to spend and invest it, Keynes argued that the state should step in to restart the economy and reduce unemployment. If the state were to get itself into debt, this did not represent a problem in itself, so as long as it successfully averted the recession and restored economic dynamism by stimulating growth, which could then be taxed to facilitate the government's debt repayment. Keynesism in this sense dominated economic policymaking in the Western world after World War II and well into the 70s. Even thereafter, Keynesism never really disappeared, but transformed into even more creditor-friendly forms with market-different distributional results. For strict free market economists, Keynesism failed, and indeed was destined to fail not only because states never tackled the deficits they racked up to stimulate the economy, even in more prosperous times, but also and more fundamentally because political intervention in the market would always subvert the natural, or at least systemic equilibrium of supply and demand. State interventionism hindered, if not wholly prevented, the necessary and correct adjustment of prices, including wages, to match consumers' willingness to spend for these unorthodox economists. The conjunction of supply and demand hinges on the price mechanism, working not only in the goods market but also in the money market via interest rates. From a neoclassical perspective, interest is simply the price of money, which adjusts the demand for money and the supply of money, bringing the two into equilibrium. If, for instance, the inclination to consume increases, firms will demand more credit. In order to acquire more credit, they will have to offer to pay lenders a higher rate of interest, Money holders will in turn be tempted by higher interest rates to save more and consume less. Finally, their hesitation to consume, prompted by the higher interest rate, will be felt by investors, who will in turn reduce their production and take out fewer loans. The interest rate goes down, more money flows into consumption, and thus the system self-adjusts. Holding money without it being spent and immediately for consumption or saved and lent for interest cannot exist in the model. Or it is assumed that any retention of cash balances to cover cash flows need is statistically irrelevant to interest rates and thereby unaffected by these mechanisms. Empirically speaking, however, this supposed relationship is stubbornly difficult to prove. The propensity to save does not correlate with interest rates, although the interest rate does represent a yardstick for firms regarding whether an investment is worth it or not. According to Keynes, this is because, contrary to neoclassical assumptions, interest is not a measure of appetite for consumption but rather of fears about the future. For neoclassicals, interest is a real phenomenon, one that would exist even in a world without money and is thereby universal and can be explained by the temporal preference of the market's agents. They suppose that agents are able to weigh up their present enjoyment of goods against their future enjoyment, and because they always prefer the former to the latter, they demand interest, paid if need be in goods, as compensation for foregoing present consumption. But not only does this implied calculative logic hinge on a supposedly self-evident innate preference for immediate over future gratification, as well as the ability to artfully weigh up one pleasure against another, which is difficult to imagine without monetary prices already existing. It also ignores the categorical difference between uncertainty and improbability. The future is uncertain, not just because we cannot know what will happen, but because our actions today, even if they were predetermined for any given individual, would appear unpredictable to others who observe us in order to orient their own behavior. In other words, even if no such thing as free will existed, we would still have to behave as if others had one. Yeah, I got it. Money is something we work toward for a want. We satisfy ourselves with objects which we get with money. Yes. I think Rain went to bed. I think I knocked Rain out. Yeah, she has to go up early in the morning, so hopefully, me reading actually put her to sleep. Should I remove the mic closer to her mouth and do like a little ASMR reading, or should I just keep her like at this distance? Okay, so only when there is no chance of anything wholly unpredictable occurring can we speak of something being improbable, in the true sense of it being stochastically more or less probable. In playing the lottery, it is highly improbable that I will predict the 6 exact numbers that will be drawn from among a set of balls numbered 1 through 49. Yet, I can calculate exactly how improbable this is. And moreover, I can be absolutely certain that the number 50 will never occur. All possible outcomes are known. In contrast to this, most future events are fundamentally uncertain. Where I, as neoclassical interest rate theory assumes, to financially discount an imagined future by calculating the value of my future consumption, this would only be possible if I already knew today the exact likelihood of my having particular desires tomorrow and of my ability to satisfy them then. Much likelier, albeit more uncertain, is that my tastes, my preferences, and my expectations would have evolved in the meantime. This makes neoclassical interest rate theory's basic premises untenable, as it can satisfactorily explain neither the essence of interest nor the rate of interest itself. In seeking to do justice to the In seeking to do justice to the intertemporality, in seeking to do justice to the intertemporality of the economy, it negates its essential eventfulness. By contrast, Keynes formulated a monetary theory of interest to reflect the econometrically insurmountable uncertainty of human agency and of the human condition more broadly. We have already seen how money allows individuals, actors to manage uncertainty. Of course, we cannot eat money, but people who live in a monetary market society and have access to money can get whatever they need with money, even if they may not know yet whether a loaf of bread or particular medicine. Although money may never attenuate existential uncertainty, indeed, for those lack it or only have goods that they need to sell, even if it amplifies it, at the very least, money affords those who have it more relaxed relationship with uncertainty. The freedom gained through money, the potential to act that it embodies, and particularly its capacity to defer decision, goes a long way towards taming uncertainty. That said, it is not just the money cannot be eaten, it is also does not by itself produce anything. This is precisely why neoclassical economics is unable to comprehend why money holders would ever fail to deposit it immediately in the bank, so that it would accrue interest if they are not spending it. Yet, economic actors do in fact hold money back, far beyond their regular or actual needs, rarely by sticking it under the proverbial mattress, but more often by letting it languish in low-yield current accounts instead of committing and investing it, because this keeps their options open and thereby offers reassurance. Even though, or perhaps because holding money serves no practical purpose, it offers security. It assures me today that I will still be able to decide everything tomorrow. Money, or precisely the extent of money hoarding, providing that it is possible for the actors to engage in it all, is a measure of the amount of confidence they have in current circumstances persisting. The greater their confidence, the less money they hold onto. By contrast, the greater the uncertainty of the actors about their circumstances, whether as a result of fear or declining income or just expectations for better investment options in the future, the greater their tendency to hoard money will be. Interest is the amount of future money, the surplus that money holders must be promised in order to surrender the security they enjoy from holding onto their money. Let me lower the brightness down because it's hurting my eyes. Interest is the amount of future money, the surplus that money holders must be promised in order to surrender the security they enjoy their holding onto their money. Interest rates do not create an equilibrium between the propensity to save and the volume of investment. Falling interest rates will not automatically stimulate a firm's desire to invest, while higher rates will not necessarily diminish it either, but rather they set a bar mark that the expected returns must surpass. This would apply even if the interest rates were determined by the markets, which, thanks to the power and policy prerogative of central bank, applies only in a restricted sense. Interest is the price paid against what Keynes termed the liquidity premium money, which Simmel had previously referred to as the surplus value, that is, the advantage of money as being immediately and indefinitely ready for actions. Interest is a monetary and therefore not natural or real economic phenomenon because it serves to compensate for a very specific advantage inherent in money. Interest is unheard of in the non-monetary societies. In order for other people to think, fuck, oh, I lost the page, hold on. Fucking zoomed out, fucking lost what page I was on. Yeah, I lost the fucking page. Okay, I wasn't that far, so I think I'm fuck. What was the last thing I said? By contrast, Keynes formulated a monetary theory of interest to reflect the economic, strictly instrumental amount of human. We have already. Of course, we cannot eat money, but people. Okay, here we go. Of course, we cannot eat money, but people who live in a monetary society and have access to money. Okay, I read that part. That said, it is not just that money cannot be eaten. It also does not by itself produce anything. That is precisely why neoclassical economists. Neoclassical economists are unable to comprehend why money holders would ever fail to deposit immediately in the bank so that it would accrue interest. Okay, here we go. Rarely by sticking it under the proverbial mattress, blah blah. Money, or more precisely, the extent of money hoarding. Okay, here we go. The greater their confidence, the less money. Okay, so I'll start from this part. Money, or more precisely, the extent of money hoarding, provided that it is possible for actors to engage in it at all, is measured of the amount of confidence they have in current circumstances persisting. The greater their confidence, the less money they hold on to. By contrast, the greater the uncertainty of the actors about their circumstances, whether a result of fear or declining income, or just the expectations for better investment options in the future, the greater the tendency to hoard money will be. Interest is the amount of future money, the surplus that money holders must be promised in order to surrender the security they enjoy from holding onto their money. Interest rates do not create an equilibrium between the propensity to save and the value of investment. Falling interest rates will not automatically stimulate a firm's desire to invest, while higher rates will not necessarily diminish it either, but rather they set a mark that the expected returns must surpass. This would apply even if interest rates were determined by markets, which, thanks to the power and policy of prerogative of central banks, applies only in a restricted sense. Interest is the price paid against what Keynes termed the liquidity premium of money, which Simmel had previously referred to as its surplus value, that the advantage of money as being immediate and indefinitely ready for action. Interest is monetary and therefore not a natural or real economic phenomenon because it serves to compensate for specific advantages inherent to money. Interest is unheard of in a non-monetary society. In order for people to be able to think in terms of interest payments, money already has to be in use as a measure of value, and goods have to be valued in terms of monetary equivalents. Moreover, in societies where social reproduction is not organized via markets and money, there is no such thing as joker card for every situation. The ownership of which hold particular appeal. Although in traditional societies things are sometimes lent and the repayment of a greater amount is demanded, such as, for instance, when it comes to borrowing seeds. It is not because the lender seeks to be compensated for being deprived of immediate consumption or freedom, but simply because they have the power to demand more. Moreover, the ritual of poll talk is hardly an early example of interest being credit, as it did not encourage the accumulation of wealth through lending, but the acquisition of honor through extravagant waste. The purpose of the ritual being not to get debtors to do work, but to ruin the recipients by means of gifts. There is a catch, though. The advantages of money require that not everyone enjoys them. For me, as a buyer, in order to have confidence in my ability to choose between different wares and suppliers, or to have the option of not even having to buy or choose anything at all right now, there needs to be a sufficient number of market actors willing or needing to sell their goods in the here and now. The superiority of money over all others stems from its exchangeability in relation to other goods, and these, especially in conditions or surplus or overproduction, will not necessarily all find buyers. Menger was correct to characterize money from its superior exchangeability, but this does not mean that money emerged out of barter. Rather, a well-developed market exchange of goods on the existence of money, which is why origins need to be sought and indeed are found outside the market. Therefore, it is possible for money, or rather a particular currency, to lose its marketability and be replaced by another. But even if one supposes, as I do in this book, that money has religious and political origins, this does not mean that religious and political authorities can simply impose a currency. Likewise, this is the rub. In a more or less stable monetary order, an asymmetry between general purpose money and purpose specific goods must be the norm. It is precisely this asymmetry that undergirds money's promise of freedom. This is the capability that those who possess it enjoy the sense of expanded agency. Should the majority, or even all people who possess money, however, at any point decide to hoard it, presuming of course that their material needs have already been satisfied, thus enabling them to do so, money will lose its liquidity premium. In order to enjoy the premium, which is immaterial but nonetheless quite quantifiable in the form of interest, money must be scarce but still in circulation. Put simply, the price of liquidity for some is illiquidity for others. There are reasons for the dynamism of monetary economies, their business cycles, their susceptibility to crises, but also surprising resilience, and liquidity paradox plays its own unique part in creating disruptions. On the one hand, money simultaneously has a positive effect in making one-sided exchange possible, and a negative effect in creating the possibility of crises when supply and demand fall to meet. On the other hand, the paradox that money's unique value, its liquidity, arises from its general usability, but that it can also disrupt the whole system, needs to be managed. Those who possess money need not even be conscious of this contradiction in order for it to be resolved, even if not always in everyone's interest. To believe that interest rates all alone can resolve their contradiction is the province of market fundamentalists, while to at least attempt to resolve it is a task of monetary policy making. The liquidity paradox leads to blockages much more rarely than might be expected. It often suffices, or rather helps, that actors seek higher incomes, whether to satisfy material desire or to prefer better for an uncertain future. In a closed system, one person's gain will be the other person's loss. The alternative to this is growth. Individual actors can seek to spend their money in ways that result in more money returned to them in the future. Precisely this approach to money, investing it with a mind of making a profit, turns into capital. The job of financial market is to facilitate this by marrying opportunities for investments with as many of the advantages of liquidity as possible. Alright, 3.2. Take a quick hydrate break. Yeah, I didn't think Emma's gonna tune in. Sparring, he's still here. Sweet. Alright. Democratic nonsense. We're not going to read this book out loud tomorrow because I do not want to read it out loud again. Alright. The logic of financial markets. 3.2. Dominant ways of thinking. Hold on, let me count how many pages I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Alright, so I got 21 pages to go through. Alright, bear with us, Barn. 21 more pages. Logic of financial markets. Dominant ways of thinking hold that financial markets, like the money itself, exist to enable intertemporal exchange. They connect savings with investment capital and an intermediate between the two. They allow capital providers and capital seekers to find one another and for one to lend capital to the other, or rather to allow the other to enjoy its usufruct for a limited period of time. The fact that, as shown above, the interest rate does not necessarily bring propensity to save, or rather the desire of money holders to enjoy security, into equilibrium with business demand for investment capital can be left aside for now. This analysis is not wrong, just incomplete and one-sided. For in actual fact, financial markets may be understood first and foremost as an answer to, or rather an attempt to resolve, the liquidity paradox. They postpone and alleviate the but never wholly resolve the dilemma of one person's enjoyment of liquidity. always coming in at the expense of others. That is the problem, that the benefits of money in terms of liquidity can, in the long run, can only be maintained through the investments that entail at least a temporary surrender of liquidity. Institutionally, it remains the job of banks and stock exchanges to channel the unused capital of some into the industrious hands of others, and in this way to make mere money into capital in the first place. They not only supply market actors with liquidity, but also minimize investment risk, inform them about going-ons in the market, and enhance the mutual scrutiny of market actors towards one another. But these functions do not mean that they aggregate into an organic, functionally complete whole. Rather, we will see that just as in the case of money, these individual functions can reciprocally impede one another. And not just that, the underlying problem that they seek to resolve. The liquidity paradox appears just at the higher level. In the case of banks, as endemic banking crisis, and with the security exchanges as speculative exuberance. First of all, both banks and security exchanges enhance liquidity and thereby increase the likelihood of exchange happening. They ultimately increase the actual velocity of market turnover, even without the overall quantity of money increasing. Above all, banks make loans, as we shall see. In this way, they in fact create new money. But even if all loans were necessarily financed from previous collected savings deposits, liquidity would still increase and overall access to money would be eased, thanks to the ability gained by those who seek money to use the money of those who presently have a surplus of it in exchange for interest. Money thus flows to where it is needed. Securities exchange have a similar function. It is not only, and for a long time not even primarily, in standardized stocks of commodities that are exchanged here. What are exchanged above all are securities, comprising all fungible assets such as shares and bonds. Shares in firms are forms of participation in economic endeavors. Their owners partake of the spoils of an enterprise by being paid a dividend from the profits. Bonds, also known as fixed interest securities, are tradable tranches of credit. More precisely, they are documents that denote a share of a larger loan whose holders are entitled to repayment as well as interest payments from their issuer. In issuing shares of bond firms thus acquire money like banks. Securities exchange does not only channel idle money towards profitable uses, but by allowing securities to be traded, they are also enable, most miraculously one might say, investment to be combined with liquidity. Buyers of shares or bonds must commit their money in order to gain dividends or interest payments. Yet, they can stay liquid insofar as they are able to sell the securities again at any time. And this ability to sell onwards, that is, to convert securities into money, can be expected to draw a greater number of investors to the market and tempt them to invest than would be in the case if investment decisions were reversible. The risk, of course, having to sell a stock or bond at a lower price than the initial purchase price could just as well dissuade some potential investors from even considering entering the stock exchange. Yet, notwithstanding occasional temporary collapses, the long-term upward trend in average stock prices has historically made stock investments considerably better advised choice than keeping one's money in the bank. This holds true even without accounting for risks, such as savings suddenly disappearing if a bank goes bust, or gradually being eaten up by the rising consumer prices or the appreciation of particular currencies. Furthermore, the risk of suffering losses due to asset price fluctuation is counterbalanced by the upside of possible capital gains. This only partially applies to bonds, since interest and repayment schedules are generally fixed, whereas stocks in principle have unlimited terms or maturities. Neither the extent of the future dividends nor their market values can be predicted with uncertainty, hence the generally higher return in stock investments, at least on average over the long run, can be explained as a risk premium paid to stockholders in return for accepting greater risk than those faced by bond-holding renters. But even buying bonds gives better return than simply depositing one's money in the bank. Second, banks and securities exchanges allow savers to choose something like a personal risk profile. This is likely to depend not at least on the amount of money they can afford to risk. Those who are best able to endure losses, thanks to their having sufficient wealth, may be more willing to invest more money in riskier endeavors that could fail, but also offer the greatest payoff if successful. Moreover, This is not necessarily a privilege enjoyed exclusively by the rich. Division of companies and commercial endeavors into smaller shares allows even some small foreign investors to speculate. Moreover, they can in effect join clubs by buying shares in funds, which in turn hold shares in various companies and undertakings, and thereby minimize the risk by spreading it around. Capital markets are instruments for individualizing and redistributing risks, and thereby in aggregate raising individuals' propensity to invest without exposing them to greater risks than they would individually be willing to bear. Same goes for banks, which also diversify and therefore reduce risk for themselves as well as for their depositors by bundling together the deposits of a large number of savers and lending them to a smaller but still fairly large set of borrowers. They spread the risk of individual borrowers being unable to meet their obligations, and the corresponding assets have to write off, thus making the risk manageable. Hi, Jailbreak. Sorry, my mic came unplugged. Check. Alright. As financial intermediaries specializing in the creation and mediation of loans, banks have the advantage of being specialized. They draw on greater economic expertise and experience and can make more extensive comparisons among multiple options than any other individual depositors could, enabling, and this is the third point, to better assess the solidity, viability, and likelihood of repayment of prospective borrowers. They have an informational advantage, which they cultivate and ideally seek to grow, and for which, in addition to their actual work of mediation, they are remunerated via the spread between the higher interest they receive on loans and the lower interest they pay to the depositors. The informational advantage, their ability to assess the financial strength of their debtors, even permits them to exercise a certain amount of control over the borrower's affairs. Loans can be tied to particular purposes. Particular conditions can trigger the repayment of particular tranches, and reporting duties can be written into loan contracts. The same idea applies to the investment funds mentioned above in joint stock companies. It is common for representatives of banks or funds have seats on the supervisory board. Long-term bank businesses relationships can be advantageous as they allow creditors to get to know the strengths and the weaknesses of their borrowers, and borrowers to gain assurance that they will not immediately be held liable for mistaken or failures. Funds can be somewhat more uncompromising in their respect. Faced with entrepreneurial failure or even just relatively harder times for their investees, they will often demand rapid response, quick improvements. Aside from some potentially important differences in culture across different parts of the financial market, the greater recklessness of funds as institutional investors follows from the fact that they do not lend, but often instead own large shares of stock capital, and consequently their own, possible even market-listed value rises and falls based on the value of the shares they own. Stock exchanges generally are much faster moving than banks. This does not necessarily mean that the market is more poorly informed than banks. One might even say that stock exchanges are in more ways superior mechanisms for information procurement and exchange. and thus, indirectly, superior means for exerting corporate control. In principle, we can observe the information about any listed company's profitability can be gained either in a decentralized way, through the market, or from a central source. From the fact that large numbers of shareholders own listed companies, it follows that they all have a vested interest in the firm's prosperity, and consequently seek to acquire knowledge about its profit outlook, as well as others' views about the same thing from as many sources as possible. Listed companies cannot escape this collective oversight. They are disciplined by the constant threat of their stockholders losing confidence, withdrawing their trust, and selling their shares. This in turn would diminish the market value of the firm and reduce its creditworthiness, making any drive for growth or innovation more expensive and reducing its future profitability. One might even say, without much exaggeration, that stock markets are hotbeds of systematic distrust. It is this situation which drives firms to continually improve their performance, whereas banks base their expectations of future returns more on trust built up over time through previous successful ventures. However, beyond the difference in how banks and stock exchanges organize the delivery of liquidity, risk diversification, information gathering, and corporate control, district bank and exchange specific roles or functions can be identified. Banks are particularly concerned with the issue of term transformation. This refers to the fact that they must finance long-term, or at least relatively longer-term lending from deposits that can be withdrawn at little or no notice. There is no problem as long as an individual deposit account is much smaller than the majority of loans, and depositors do not withdraw their deposits all at the same time, which under normal circumstances they will not do. Another margin of security derives from the fact that banks pay lower interest on those deposits than they exchange on loans. This margin is the basis of their profitability and offers them room for maneuver, with the option for raising deposit interest rates in the event of a shortfall of available capital or unexpectedly large amount of borrowers defaulting. This would eat into their profits, but their capital inflows and outflows would once again be balanced. Banking, or rather this fundamental aspect of banking, could therefore consist in balancing the liquidity preferences and time horizons of different classes of clients, and within them clients with different characteristics. This makes not only more capital but also more time available to the entire economy than would otherwise be the case. So now we are speaking about banking and personal finance on which systems to work with. Basically, I think that's what I think so. I think that was 5 pages, so 18 more to go. Yet the business has inherent risk, not just for the individual banks, but for the banking sector as a whole, and with it the entire economy, and it conceals a systematic risk. As you have seen, the interest rate does not necessarily balance out different actors' propensities to save and to invest. Even if it did, the necessary adjustments would take time. Banks consequently need to anticipate the changes in interest rates, which they have only limited capacity to absorb. If, for instance, savers' liquidity preferences were to increase and banks were constrained to offer them more interest on their deposits, while interest income from loans continued to reflect, at least for the time being. The older lower rate, the bank profits and security margins would diminish. They are able to manage this risk through variable interest rate contracts with their debtors, such that the borrower's interest burden tracks any rise or fall in the liquidity premium. While borrowers can, of course, hope for lower rates they had originally agreed to, they also need to be prepared for the opposite scenario, in which their loans would end up becoming more expensive than expected. Prudent businesses would be expected to limit their borrowing and thus their investing under such circumstances, while holding borrowers run the risk of being able to afford rising rates and of losing their assets pledged as collateral. As a result, they may have to sell off corporate divisions or even declare bankruptcy. Such entrepreneurial failures would also harm the banks themselves. Not only the expected interest payments, but also the entire loan would have to be written off. As much as banks might thus hope to use variable interest rates to pass the buck and escape the difficulties caused by sudden exchanges in liquidity preferences, this would exacerbate the risks their borrowers face, and the failure these borrowers would, in turn, become the bank's problem. The challenge is intensified by the fact that a general rise in interest rates at this kind hurts not only individual banks, the banking sector as a whole, and by extension, the entire economy. All banks face the dual problem of having to demand more interest from their borrowers, while worrying about how this affects their borrowers and wider economy. In the worst case, they might fear for their own survival, causing governments in turn to worry and possibly forcing them to bail the banks out. The thesis that crises not only follow distinct patterns, but they are a fundamental and inevitable feature of a contemporary form of capitalism that necessarily relies on functioning and expanding financial markets stems from Hyman Minsky, a long marginalized but recently rediscovered heterodox economist. Contemporary capitalism requires financial markets to work to meet economic agents' need for capital, as well as to provide information flows and risk management for the broader economy. Minsky goes so far as to posit that the real economy, that is, production and trade, increasingly depends on the financial economy, and he therefore grants financial markets an analytical primacy. Whether this means that all major crises in modern capitalism are or are caused by financial crises is a matter of debate. Nonetheless, our present economic system may be understood as a financial market capitalism or financialized capitalism, and Minsky's model of the dynamics of financial crisis encapsulates the last major crisis strikingly well. Furthermore, given just how little was learned from the last crisis and how financial integration and self-regulation have continued to be preferred over the alternative or compartmentalizing and regulating financial market, it stands to reason that the next crisis will also follow Minsky's script. They were talking about the 2009 recession, I believe. Yeah, I know, the fire, there's sirens pass, there's fire trucks and ambulances that pass by here a lot, especially at nighttime. The starting and vanishing point of Minsky's thought is the idea that stability itself inevitably breeds instability. Stability means a solid business outlook and reliable fulfillment of expectations. This stability, in turn, allows for stopgaps and safety measures of gradually be removed. That is, for reserves to be liquidated, higher or rising sales to be assumed in perpetuity, and property titles to be mortgaged. Can't say that word. And even in more assets to be dedicated to investments. Investment booms are often buoyed by new technological visions, such as, for instance, at the beginning of the 21st century with the internet, or today's expectations of a fourth industrial revolution. Such technology-driven visions of transformations require substantial financial investments in order to be realized. Even while, in the Keynesism sense, it remains fundamentally uncertain or unknowable what economic gains they will bring about over the long run. The premise that this time is different, that we are dealing with a new economy to which the older rules no longer apply, also tempts more firms, including many brand new ones, to take out loans and banks to make more credit available and to asset their borrowers less on the basis of their collateral than in the light of their ideas. Debt level rise in one sector at first, and then in the economy as a whole, Financial innovation permits the volume of credit to expand despite an unchanging monetary base. Experience shows that financial innovation leads both to credit expansion and to new investment opportunities simultaneously. In the run-up to the previous financial crisis, the crucial innovation that caused the debt overhang to increase was the securitization of U.S. mortgages, which transformed them into anonymous marketable securities. But when interest rates rise, whether because individual lenders start to get cold feet and decrease their lending, or because central banks increase the base rate of commercial banks must pay to access fresh money, a downward spiral can ensure. Borrowers, not exclusively firms, but especially firms who have accrued debt on the basis not only of growing asset values but also of their anticipated future returns, up to the point where they can only service their loans by rolling them over, are liable to suddenly find themselves struggling to refinance and to be forced to shed assets in fire sales. However, because the supply of corporate shares and other assets on the market rise, their price falls, sometimes already razor thin. Safety margins evaporate and the former credit boom reverts into debt deflation, which is the 1930s, which this guy says in the Great Depression. First the financial markets, then trade and production descend into recession. This process ends only when enough capital is, or more precisely when sufficient assets and promises of payment that were once falsely treated as money equivalents are written down or written off, and what remains is backed by real profits or realistic profit expectations, at least until the next cycle begins. And so far as banks worry about term transformations in particular, the problem not merely one of matching different, but at least statistically determined time horizons, but rather one of expectation management in the face of more or less abrupt potential changes in money owners' liquidity preferences. Banks might be able to diffuse the liquidity paradox, but can never abolish it. In certain aspects, seeking to diffuse the paradox can exaggerate it, as bottlenecks caused by the liquidity preference of individual money holders might be avertible. But the credit system increases the overall amount of liquidity while not overcoming the fundamental susceptibility of the economy to crises caused by rises in interest rates. Occasional monetary traffic jams, as to speak, are averted only by amplifying the risk, or less frequent, but for this very reason more significant crashes. When these will occur is unpredictable, and any attempt to calculate the probability of such crises, for instance using data on historical debt levels, offers the best false certainty about when the next crisis will erupt. What level of debt is ultimately sustainable remains unknown. For instance, Japan's sovereign debt to GDP, gross domestic product ratio, of over 250% as of 2017, seemingly possesses no threat, while Greece's ratio of 175% represents an extremely serious problem. When and whether lenders start to worry about their loans depends not less on their assessment of their borrowers' economic prospects. One of the tools they can use to decide this are the securities exchanges. The special function of security exchanges is price discovery. This refers, in the first place, to their facilitating the price formation process and making it more reliable, and second, more importantly, they're completing markets by including possible futures. Exchanges put prices on goods that do not yet exist, such as shares in firms that have not yet made a profit on the basis of promises of payment that may or may not be kept. The fact that exchanges are able to discover these prices is remarkable, as they depend solely on expectations and not on any real supply or demand. But the problematic fact is that instead of merely providing greater security, speculation can bring devastating price fluctuations and erupt destruction of asset value, which is just as bad for traders and producers as term transformations gone wrong. We need to differentiate systematically between commodity exchanges and financial asset exchanges. on the other hand, and spot forward exchanges on the other. Commodity exchanges deal with standardized and standardizable goods, such as grain or oil, while financial asset exchanges deal with shares, bonds, currencies, derivatives, and the like. But I have a sub to you. Cool. Yeah, one of the guys from the community I'm in was drunk the other night. I donated 25 gifted subs, and you were like one of the first one, John. Good to see you, John. It's been a while. I'm reading a chapter from this book called Money Society for this book club I'm in, and this is chapter 3. So far with chapter, we have learned that money is used to satisfy you, but you must work towards that money, then transition to personal finance with bank on how liquidity and loans work within the society. Right. Yeah. So I have Final Fantasy VIII playing right now in the background. I'm just reading this book through this with the background music to the Balaam Hotel. I'm gonna take a quick break from this fucking damn book. How you been, John? It's been a while. Trying to get a job in my field. It's interesting. Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna take over your mentor's position. Or I thought that's what his plan was, to like have you take over so he could take a longer vacation. I was hoping to do that, but I never played. Oh, that sucks. Sorry, I got my dinner right here as well. I'm eating Taco Bell. Cheesy bean and rice burritos for $1. Alright, back to the book. The standardization of commodities and stocks and the supervision of their trade by an independent organization allows buyers and sellers to avoid having to inspect the objects being traded or to negotiate specific contracts for each trade. Instead, they can focus exclusively on identifying the right price. This facilitates everyone's access to the market and accelerates trade. Both goods and securities can either be sold in the spot for money or can be made subject to an agreement, whereby such a sale is contracted for a definite date in the future. A buyer, for instance, will give a share owner a guarantee that he will buy a particular number of shares at an agreed price on that date and make a down payment now. One reason for entering into such a future contract could be a current shortage of money on the buyer side. Another would be hope that prices will rise, because if the value of the share rises above the agreed price in the meantime, the buyer earns a profit. If, however, it falls, the buyer is obligated to pay the seller a higher price than could be obtained on the market. In this case, the buyer's speculative purchase will have backfired. Either way, at the point of contracting, the buyer at least knows what price he will have to pay in the future. It may be precisely this certainty that makes him willing to pay more than the current market price. Such futures contracts can, in turn, also be traded. The seller can sell his sales contract to a third party, while the buyer can sell his delivery obligation. The future contract itself, therefore, has a price and value of its own, which is independent of the value of the initial down payment. Futures themselves are also financial assets, because their value derives from the agreed purchase or sale of another asset. As in our example, they are second order or derivative assets. Apart from futures of this simple narrow type, there are also other kinds, most importantly options and swaps. The former are not contracts to agree or a trade, but mere options or rights to initiate one. The option may or may not be used depending on whether, by the time of its maturity, the agreed end date of the option, it is cheaper or dearer to execute the trade on the spot. Swaps, on the other hand, are agreements to swap particular payment streams for one another. For instance, a fixed income stream from rents might be exchanged for a certain period of time against more variable dividend payments, without anyone having to exchange the actual real estate or shares that have been rented out. As this example clarifies, derivatives permit a great deal of financial activity to be undertaken with fairly little committed capital compared to buying or selling the underlying assets. At the time, however, the volume of trade in derivatives tend to vastly outstrip the trade in underlying assets, and, in turn, the volume of financial market outstrips growth in the underlying economy because, and in principle, a limited number of derivatives may be created in reference to a fixed number of underlying first-order assets. The basic idea behind this trade in or even of futures is, on the other hand, to guarantee economic actors reliable prices today in spite of the fundamental uncertainty about tomorrow, and on the other hand, to smooth out overall price fluctuations. However, every insurance taker must find a counterparty willing to act as an insurer. Despite uncertainty about the future, one party's gain in security, such as the certainty of being able to sell share X at price Y, becomes the other party's risk, such as having to pay more than X than its value in a spot trade. But there's also a chance for the second party to profit by buying cheaply by contract and then immediately selling for a much higher price on the spot market. By way of so-called short selling, even falling prices can be used to make a profit. If I have reason to believe that particular share will be worth significantly less in the future, then for a fee, I can borrow this particular share from someone who owns it and plans to retain ownership, and I can sell it onward immediately, only to buy it back more cheaply later as the return date approaches. An insurer, that is a speculator, will, of course, only engage in such risky venture if he has a good reason to believe that the expectation of a lower future value is correct. A short seller can earn very large profits by committing quite a small amount of capital, as long as there is substantial fall in prices. If, however, they unexpectedly rise, the difference between the buying and the contracted selling price of the borrowed asset plus the initial fee might represent a substantial loss. Futures and more generally, derivatives trading both applies and implies a potentially substantial amount of leverage, because relatively small amounts of money are mobilizing as underlying assets worth many times that. In order to take such risks, speculators must be well informed about the factors and conditions that could push the price in one direction or another. They seek to use informational advantages to transform, so to speak, their surplus knowledge into surplus value, and in so doing even perform, at least in theory, a valuable service for the market. If the majority of speculators believe the spot price, or specifically the future price, of a commodity or share is too high, then they go short and sell it, thereby driving the market price closer to the actual value. Conversely, they go long and buy assets or papers which they have greater promise than their current price suggests. Ideally, then, speculation ought to smooth out prices, dampen upward and downward fluctuations, and moderate the market's volatility. I can't read sometimes. Fucking keep hearing microphone feedback, and I don't know why. It's pissing me off. I think I might need a new headset soon. Oh well. Alrighty, let's keep going with this book. With this big. Alright. This idea that stock markets generate accurate or correct prices is known in contemporary financial theory as the efficient market hypothesis, or EMH. The EMH purpose that in any sufficiently large and liquid financial market, exchanges with a constant turnover of a significant proportion or any given security, prices will always reflect all of the information about the asset that is available, meaning the profitability of the firm or the creditworthiness of the borrower behind the security. Prices reflect the average and therefore, under the present conditions, best estimate of the present value of a financial asset, whether it is a debt instrument, a corporate share, or any other security. News or divergent interpretations of older facts are immediately incorporated into the price, because buyers and sellers reveal their knowledge about the correct value of the asset through buying and selling in a particular price. If their knowledge had no bearing on the price, they would seek to trade. If they did not trade and seek to exploit any divergence between the current market price and the correct price, presumably this is because they have no information that would generally warrant a change in price. This hypothesis is a more radical version of an older claim made by Friedrich von Hayek, that markets are always superior tools for processing information than central planning, due to their ability to procure and absorb a panoply of specialized forms of local knowledge from the different actors that are involved in them. It is more radical because financial markets, according to the EMH... The fuck was that? Was that a gunshot? Yeah, fuck it, whatever. It is more radical because financial markets, according to the EMH, not only work far better than central planning bureaus, that actually work perfectly. No one can ever know better than the market. This, of course, does not mean that prices do not fluctuate, but rather that they fluctuate precisely because individual actors, alibi only for brief moments, know or believe that they know better. Present prices always reflect the best possible judgment of the value of an asset. Or put another way, its price and its value are one and the same until someone comes along who buys or sells because they actually possess new information. If the EMH were correct, then investors' so-called fundamental analysis of companies, market segments, product innovations, consumer preference, government debt levels, or political trends, and so on, would be as futile and absurd as the notion of any expert financial market advice. In the context of security exchanges and financial markets more generally, fundamental analysis refers to attempts to determine the true value of an asset by carrying out an in-depth assessment of the producers or borrowers represented by the asset, examining their balance sheets as well as their business plans and partnerships using a range of indicators. If financial markets were information efficient, that is, because allocative efficiency in terms of direct economic resources to their highest utility uses another matter, and does not necessarily follow from this information processing efficiency, then fundamental analysis will be pointless, because even the best analysis can never beat the wisdom of the masses reflected in the market price. And if no financial expert or advisor could ever beat the market, then for large investors it would be sensible and cheaper to buy index funds, which simply reflect the market as a whole rather than pursuing specific investments. Any success would be pure luck rather than the reward for superior insight. Yet index funds have neither displaced fundamental analysis and fundamental analysts nor driven the purveyors of investment expertise out of a business. Perhaps in part because these actors have managed quite like homeopaths in the face of conventional medicine to brand their own expertise as not necessarily superior, but nonetheless supposedly a very helpful alternative. Even more important, however, is the fact that the EMH suffers from an elementary logical inconsistency, which offers solace to the aforementioned professions as much as it creates practical problems for the financial market themselves. If the market already knows best with respect to all possible contingencies, and any better assessment of value than the current price is impossible, then it is sensible and logical to trust exclusively in the judgment of the market and to refrain from conducting one's own verification or analysis. Fuck, I need water. Fuck, where was I? If the market already knows best with respect to all possible contingencies and any better assessment of value than the current price is impossible, then it is sensible and logical to trust exclusively in the judgments of the market and to refrain from conducting one's own verification of analysis. If market prices already contain all price-relevant information, then individual investors should rely on these prices without bothering to collect this information themselves. The same principle applies, of course, to all investors in the market. Instead of relying on the dispersed knowledge of the market participants, and therefore at least indirectly on fundamentals, it is good enough to simply observe price changes. However, in markets for promises of payment, in fact for expectations, these price ranges can unfold following a very different logic from that found in markets that connect real goods and concrete needs. Here again, we encounter the same mimetic logic discussed in the section on the probability of trade in section 1.3 on chapter 1. In goods, market prices rise generally depress demand, and through this mechanism they throttle these rises. But in financial markets, a price rise can itself become the cause of a rise in demand. If the price of a share, for instance, begins to climb, this must be because its true value was greater than its previous price. The price rise in itself already furnishes proof for its having been worth more, and anyone who believes the market to be infallible now ought to seek to acquire this share. As can be expected and often seen in reality, whatever their initial causes, price fluctuations become self-reinforcing. Changes in the market value of shares, even often the value of the whole markets, routinely overshoot in one direction or another and happen far more quickly than any serious reassessment of the fundamental value or any recalibration of expectations regarding business prospects and future profits or losses could explain. The only solace being that less overshoots can be corrected with time. Interestingly, long before the postulation of the EMH, Keynes had already shown that a structural decoupling of value judgments from a real economics facts was inevitable in financial markets. Keynes' theory of speculation can be seen as the securities market's counterpart to Minsky's bank-based theory of crises. Financial markets are always places of second-order observation. This means that market actors never observe what goes on in the real economy independently of one another, adjusting their portfolios autonomously when circumstances change, as though a farmer having tapped his barometer after breakfast could decide to move his capital from the farming business between 10 and 11 in the morning and reconsider whether he should return to it later in the week. But rather, these actors observe and indeed must observe the observations that others around them are making. These others are comrades in arms, inasmuch as they all profit from the same trends, which often only exist thanks to the collective creation and nurturing of them, but also rivals insofar what happens in a financial market is a battle of opinions, whether being right on the individual level, that is, buying and selling before others do, matters above all else. In this respect, the buying and selling of assets resembles the children's game musical chairs, in which players run in circles around chairs while music plays. When the music stops, each child has to try to sit down on a chair. In every round, a player and a chair are eliminated, and the child who manages to sit on the last chair wins the game. When the music begins playing, the participation focuses on the music and authority over which they expect to have no immediate control. But as the children's excited voices start to drown out the music, each of them focus more and more on watching the others. Are they hearing what I'm hearing? They in turn are doing the same thing, observing the others and adjusting their behavior. Inevitably, one of them will lose their nerve and sit down while the other follows suit. Even though the music is still playing, or all of them might continue to run around the chairs long after the music has stopped. Transposed to security markets, this means that mutual observation takes the place of collective observation of the external environment. A spiral of observation thus unfolds, which blurs together observing facts with observing the observation of facts. Inevitably, even genuine investors become speculators. The real economy becomes obscured by the veil of others' assessment that cannot be lifted, not only because one's own assessment is always influenced by those of others, but also because the real economy hinges as much on financial market signals as these do not do on the real economy, which must validate the promises of payment that were initially created in financial markets. Even if objective economic realities were somehow still discernible, they would be of little importance as long as others were oblivious to them, or seem to believe that they have no meaning. Nobody can escape stock market trends, and everyone is well advised to follow the prevailing opinion, even if they think it is wrong. And by conforming to it, they are confirming it. Having good reason to be confident in the bright future is financially worthless if others' lack of confidence sends its shares plummeting. In this case, investing would be ill-advised. Asset prices are not therefore reflections of objective values, but rather conventions. As long as they appear to be more than mere conventions, or as long as the broad consensus prevails about their reflecting real values or reliable promises of payment, fluctuations in prices can count as a result of commonplace, inevitable, and also profitable differences of opinion. However, as soon as new prophecies or doubts begin to spread about whether these great shared hopes are still valid, other self-reinforcing processes can take hold. The boom reinforces the boom, the slump prolongs the slump, bubbles emerge, grow, and burst. Bubbles are bubbles not because the real value of an asset or an index could ever be determined and juxtaposed against the inflated value, but because the still significant difference between value and price is blurred. Viewed from the perspective of the EMH, the steadily rising price of a corporate share can be explained by the fact that even the newer, higher estimate of its future profitability was still too low. Conversely, its sustained fall reveals even more new, or at least previously well-hidden problems. Viewed from a Keynesism or mimetic's perspective, however, prices skyrocket or plummet because a convention weakens and the actors, now uncertain about just how badly they might have misjudged things, or rather how much money they have wrongly staked on their judgment, look to each other for confidence and thereby force each other's sense of euphoric or panic. Such a self-reinforcing trend is broken only when actors once again successfully agree about how to distinguish pure speculations from real investment or arbitrage from the real quest to participate, at least indirectly, in real economic undertakings. A distinction that, strictly speaking, is in any case untenable. In making this distinction, they seek to revert from second order to first order observation. Yeah, I like how they brought musical chairs in for those who were lost. All right, last page, last page. The real economy is, of course, profoundly affected by the emergence and bursting of bubbles, as by fluctuations in available credit, which is driven by the rise and fall of the liquidity premium. Inasmuch as rising asset prices and cheap credit enable growth and innovation, and inasmuch as production depends on the ability to make investments upfront, as do the falling prices and credit contractions topple actually flourishing real economies, when the deflation of capital assets makes debt servicing suddenly more difficult. It would be wrong-headed to deny the utterly remarkable capacity of securities markets to blend liquidity with investment, and through this to supply us much more capital to the economy than would otherwise conceivably be available. This is plainly indispensable for any modern economy. It is also worth underscoring how security markets and banks manage to disperse risks, and in this way to prevent the anxiety of some from getting in the way of the boldness of others. But it must also be recognized that chasing liquidity, a fetish which a society of money can scarcely escape, inevitably involves a mere trade of individual risk for systematic risk. Attempts to address this problem using the tools of the market, meaning to manage the risk of financial markets through the continued financial innovation, have a long history of failure. As much as ever, politics alone can and must set limits to the logic of financial markets, but the contemporary political system operating by the large within the boundaries of the nation state appears to be confounded by the scale and complexity of the problem. While this is a topic in its own right that exceeds the scope of this book, we will see in Chapter 4 that the politics of money began long before the regulation of financial markets even became a problem. Alright, so that's the end of Chapter 3. That's the end of Chapter 3. That was a decent read, so if those who stuck around hearing me read this chapter, thank you. Thank you. I'm not really one to fucking read out loud. I always hated reading out loud at school. If you're asking me if I understood everything I read, I understood half of it. I wonder who got shot outside. Hey, random. Yeah, I got. Yeah, these ones finally got approved. But to celebrate getting through this book, I'm gonna celebrate the reading of this book. I'm probably gonna take my character right now, and I'm gonna fucking go get killed by a bomb in the fire cave. But that was Chapter 3 of Money and Society. That's for the book club. That's tomorrow night. So if you're participating in the book club, I read the chapter for you. I'm not going to read it again out loud tonight. So if you want to get caught up, just rewatch the stream. And it's about, maybe it took me about an hour and a half with the breaks I took. I learned most of what the chapter is. I was a part of book club before. I could never fucking time the trigger down right in this game. I used to be able to do it back in the day. But yeah, so that was about an hour and a half reading. Why are you reading for? Oh, because if I try to read the book on my own, I'm not gonna fucking read it. And so I figured, why not read it live on stream for anyone else who hasn't read it, so maybe they can read along, and I could be like, okay, I read the book. This is a book without spark notes. Yeah, he was able to read 160 words a minute when he was 5. Hey, what the fuck does this thing have? Oh, it only has Blizzard. Look, motherfucker, I'm not reading it. Yeah, I know you're not reading it. But yeah, that's chapter 3 of the book that Democratic Nonsense suggested about Money Society. It's actually a pretty interesting read about how money, like, so far what we got from it. Like right now, this chapter deals into the stock market, deals with investing your money and hoping that you get a return on capital, and that if you invest your money into something and there's a loss on it, it's one of the things that helps jumpstart the economy. It's called Money and Society by Paul something. It's a financial book. Alright, let's go find a bomb and see if the bomb can kill me in the fire cave. Yeah, I'm off tomorrow. I'm on my way back from Taco Bell tonight. My tire pressure light came on, so I'm hoping tomorrow when I go get a haircut before I go have lunch with the buddy that it's just a fluke. Society is a great movie. Is it still on Prime? I think Society is still on Prime. What they finally added on Hulu was Boondock Saints 2 All Saints Day. Huh, I got like 10 viewers. Like I know like half of them are here for me to read a book. If you want. Yeah, this week I'm off Thursday and Friday. Next week I'll be off, I think only Saturday. Alright, sweet. There's the bomb. Oh, what the fuck is that thing? I just realized that's just a floating stone with devil wings. That's... Yeah, the bombs look the best in Final Fantasy IX, I believe. Like, I thought they looked good in 8, but it's just a fucking orange ball with spiky hair in this one. At least in fucking 9, they looked a lot better. Hey, I hit the trigger finally. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cast fire on this asshole. And I'm gonna let the bomb kill me. Grow, asshole, grow! You know what? Fine, fuck you. Alright, the bomb didn't kill me, so fuck the bomb. Yeah, I never noticed it. It's just a windmill of wings and shit. With a fucking sun in the middle. Demonic sun. Hey Bobber, I'm going to head out for the night. I hope you have a great stream. It was great to hear your read now. I'm ready for the book club. Haha, good night, man. Hey, no problem, Spartan. Thanks for coming in here, tuning in, keeping me company as I read that. And thanks for hearing this fire truck and the gunshots earlier. I'll see you tomorrow for book club. Okay, so I think I have Skate downloaded finally. Yeah, no, the fire truck passed by earlier and there was like a loud boom earlier, so I'm assuming it was a gunshot. Yeah, I think it was just an asshole fire lighting off fireworks. Let me double check on the progress of... Skate. Let me see if... How loud? I think it was an M80. At least I think it was. Oh, fuck. Alright, cool. We're gonna let T-Rex's kill me. I fucking tail whipped my ass. Alright, so we're gonna move on to Skate. Skate XL, I got that downloaded finally. Fun fact, the game over screen is the only time you ever hear the Final Fantasy Prelude in Final Fantasy VIII. Okay, so let's jump into Skate now. We used Final Fantasy VIII served its purpose. Great game, terrific background music from Balaam Garden. Well, no, from the Balaam Hotel in Balaam Town. The soundtrack's called Breezy by Nobuo Uematsu. Yeah, Final Fantasy VI was the best. Alright, so this is Skater XL. I downloaded this bullshit game. And it just finished downloading. I thought it said Skate XL. I didn't know it was called Skater XL. So, let's see here. I agree. Blah blah blah. It's just fucking just go. Let's go ahead and do some Street League shit. Alright, I got some new emotes. Alright, let me try. Fucking. Alright, so you can pull the 6 in any direction to move your feet individually. Oh, this is gonna be. You should have it if you're a sub. Like, if you're got a sub, you should have these first 4 emotes. You should have the CT, you should have the bear, you should have the drunk Kupo, and then you should have the angry bear. No, that's CT right there. I just had someone do choo choo above so it makes more sense. Move your foot forward on the board to shift your weight, then let go to pop the board. Alright, move your foot backwards and then to the side, scoot the board left or right. Move your board backward and let go to ollie, then put your foot inside to do flip the board. No, you should just do Tony Hawk. I have Tony Hawk. It's just Tony Hawk's gonna take some time to download. I think it's like 10 gigabytes or some. No, 32 gigabytes. Oh fuck! Move your back foot backwards and let go to ollie. Then rotate your body to the left or right. Okay. Push off A or X, steers left to right, and D. What's to brake? B is to brake. So if your spawn point is down, jump to your spawn point is up. Alright, I think I fucking fucked up buying this damn game. I mean, it's a nice chill game to like kind of like give yourself a break from everything, but there's not really much over here to do other than like let's just change our character to see what else we could do. Yeah, no, none of these look any decent that I'd wear. Oh, never mind. Got decent music. I mean, that's just probably this only game saving grace is the music right now. Yeah, definitely not wearing chino shorts. Yeah, we're going with Santa Cruz. Alright, let's see what else we can do in this game. I think this is more of a... This game's more for chilling, I guess, than it is for actual, like, story-wise. Like how, Tony Hawk was. Holy shit. Alright, so this game gives you more of a sense of, you're fucked, in a sense. They don't tell me how to do grab tricks, though. That's what I want to try to do. Yeah, you can't do any trap tricks. This fucking game, wow. You know how much fun I had just doing grabs? Okay, I think I've kind of figured this out. So this game actually uses actual, like, game logic, so actual real life logic, so Okay, so if I do this right, I should be able to fucking rotate like crazy. I want to do a McTwist. That's all I don't care about now is a McTwist. Alright, so this game's stupid. Okay, so this game actually had some hype to it. I'm not a big fan of it, honestly. I'm not. Let's check out downtown LA. Fucking bullshit. Can't even get off the board to like explore the map. It's kind of shitty. Oh fuck it. Let's see if we can get the Santa Monica. Alright, fuck this game. Wait, Barbie. Welcome to my dollhouse, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. I'm just gonna play some golf real quick, and then I'm gonna end the stream after playing 9 holes. Hi, Barbie. Welcome to the stream, though. Yeah, we're just gonna play golf with friends real quick. I'm just gonna play by myself, and we're just gonna see what we have. Color, I'm gonna go with this color here, because it's my trademark color. Alright, let's start this quick. I don't know how to play this. I downloaded this too. Fuck. How the fuck do you shoot? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay, I kind of figured this out now. Fuck! I don't say I'm the best fucking golfer. Oh, this game will be a fun collab with some friends. Wonder if I could jump it. Nope. Alright, now I kind of figured out how to play the game. I can do this. Where the fuck did I go? Ugh. I just need a hole in one. The amount of trolling I could do in this game. Alright, so if I'm gonna do a collab with some friends with this game, it's definitely gonna be one for the taking. Fuck! You gotta be fucking kidding me. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Fucking. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Oh. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. No, 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 no. I don't know how Moo feels when he plays this fucking game with Nogla. You motherfucker. What kind of fucking shit is this? Fucking! Alright, so I think I got the hang of this game now, so I'm ready to do that collab stream with everyone later. So this is definitely more of a tame version of Golf It. Alright, so if we're gonna customize, no, we gotta go to controls, and then we gotta change reset. Okay, so jetpack. Okay. I'm late as fuck, but how's reading? Yeah, damn right you're late as fuck. You're fucking late as hell. Thanks for tuning in, Em. Spartan was here. Rai was here. I think Democratic Nonsense came in for a little bit to listen to the stream. Listen to me read it. It took me about maybe an hour and a half, I want to say. An hour and a half to read chapter 3. With a little bit of like some breaks to catch up on chat. Rain was here. I put her to sleep, which is what she wanted. So that worked. But yeah, Spartan was here. The reading was okay. I want to say that it was there's some words I couldn't pronounce really good, and some words I didn't know what it meant, but other than that, it was a pretty good read. So me and Spartan will be prepared for discussion tomorrow. Thanks for the bits, Em. Twitch would not allow me to have that title. Golf with your friends, except I have no friends. Jesus Christ, 300 bits? But yeah, this is Golf with Friends. I was trying out this other game I downloaded called Skater XL. Terrible investment of a game. But yeah, this is Golf with your friends. You like my new... Well, Civic was drunk the other night, so he gifted about 20 subs. I want to say he gifted about 25 subs the other night when he rated me. Man, I was able to unlock 3 more emotes. So I got the bottom ad, I got that bear, and I got the drunk Moogle. I know I need to work on the drunk Moogle, and I know I need to work on Mog right here, and then I need to work on the Dorse one, which is a dog horse. But yeah, I don't know how tomorrow goes. I might stream at 10. It just depends. My tire light did come on today when I was coming back from Taco Bell after I got off work. So I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed and hope that I don't have a nail in my tire and I don't have to take it down to the shop to get fixed up. So that's the plan for tomorrow. But tomorrow I will be streaming maybe at 10 or 11, and I'm gonna be streaming either continuing with Final Fantasy VIII, or I'll be streaming House Flipper, or continuing with Revenant Dogma. One of those 3. But thank you all for coming in here. Thank you, Emmy, for showing up. I know you're late as hell, but it's great to see you in here. Killer Bob, it's great seeing you again. Hopefully we can get back on a game with Among Us with the whole crew. Rai, thanks for lurking. And shout out to Spartan for sticking around in here while keeping me company as I read that whole chapter. And reading a chapter on your phone is definitely difficult, so I just want to say that people who actually do record audio recordings, audio books, I give it up to them. But we're gonna go ahead and do a raid right now. We're gonna raid Icky. We're gonna raid Mr. Icky Arkman. He's playing League, so let's go surprise him with a raid. Thank you guys for tuning in. Follow me on Twitter for any updates if I cancel stream when I'm live. And let me get our raid message out, because but thank you guys so much. I appreciate all of your guys' support. Love you all. And have a good morning, noon, and night, wherever you guys are at. And thank you all, you good-looking gamers. Hopefully soon this raid will go through. But definitely streaming tomorrow. I'm going to take Friday and Saturday off. And after tomorrow's stream, I won't be streaming again until next Monday. But yeah. I won't be streaming Sunday, but I'll post on Sunday my next week's stream schedule for what times I'll be streaming. I just don't know what I'm gonna be streaming of till like the day of the stream. So keep updated on Twitter. I will let you guys know what I'll be streaming the day of.